Hi, I'm Bella Boss, and my literary merit book of choice was Slaughterhouse-Five. A short summary about this is that it was written by Kurt Vonnegut and begins with the author struggling on writing his book on his own experiences in the massacre of Dresden in World War II. He has to visit his friend Bernard O'Hare to understand and really get a sense for what he's writing in his book. Although while he's talking over coffee with Bernard in his kitchen, Mary, his wife, is very angry. Mary says that this book is going to promote war to the future generation, and when it's really just the killer of children because these men going into the war are just scared boys. To her surprise, the author agrees and says that it's the children's crusade. Then the real book begins. Billy Pilgrim, a World War II veteran optometrist, claims he's able to go through time and see events play out, not chronologically, but in the blink of an eye. Basically, one moment he'll be at an optometrist party, drunk in his cart, and the next moment he'll be in the snow during World War II before he gets captured by the Germans. In total, the book really goes between his time in the German prison camp, Trial of Mador, and his post-war life. He says he's able to do this because he was kidnapped by a flying saucer in 1967, which brought him to the planet of Trial Mador, and where they took him through a time warp. The Trial Madorians don't see time as a linear concept, and it's basically your life is a centipede of your moments where you can hop around simultaneously, seeing your birth multiple times and seeing your death multiple times. The book shows Billy's little sense he's made of his life from the bombing he suffered in Dresden. And even though he goes on to be accomplished later on, long after the war, he shows no sense or peace or handle his mind because of the tragedies he faced. Ultimately, he uses the planet of Trial Mador, while real to him, as a way to cope because he believes the concept of time and free will by the Trial Madorians are not real and Billy does not have control over, seeing his life through different moments stuck, jumbled, and incoherent. Billy throughout the book is not a confident soldier. He is a very whimpery and whiny person. He gets drunk a lot at parties. He is kind of just not a strong individual, and it's really hard to see him as a victorious hero to the war, and that's what made this book so impactful. What made this book impactful? Well, Slaughterhouse-Five is a phenomenal anti-war book, and is really why this book is impactful, because it does not paint Billy Pilgrim as a victorious, heroic soldier. It really paints him as a scared, scrawny boy, and shows how these soldiers going into war are not as competent as we believe. They're not as prepared as we believe, and are going through mass devastations simultaneously throughout their time in total war. This really helps impact the reader because it pushes the anti-war narrative in a different sense, really leaving a lasting impression on them because they now see how grueling total war really is and how it's shouldn't be promoted positively or publicized as a victorious effort from these soldiers, because the soldiers who fought in the war weren't all strong men, and most of them were just scared boys trying to get by, and leaves the participants of war struggling in the long run. A connection to a current event is the war between Russia and Ukraine, which has been going on since 2022. Its discussion of anti-war narratives attributes to the war since the devastations and repercussions Billy Pilgrim had to face from a result of World War II, soldiers in Ukraine and Russia are now having to deal with right now, highlighting the true and inhumane inflictions caused by the war. Furthermore, it connects to the Big 12 thematic question of how does media affect us? Because of how war is portrayed by the media, propaganda, or even social media, it creates a victorious, as I said, attitude towards war. And media makes us believe that all people who go into the war are hero-sized and really leads our viewpoints in life. This really impacts us to not have a full understanding of the impacts of war on the soldier itself. And a lot of the time, the media shows them to just be a hero. However, in reality, 30% of the soldiers who went into World War II died. And that isn't even counting the ones who survived but had to live with extreme PTSD for the rest of their lives, disabilities, and more. The media leads us to not see the true reality surrounding war and leads us to ultimately have a flawed view of its impact. My personal reflection and recommendation is I personally really enjoyed reading this book. I found it extremely interesting and it always kept me engaged. It was a relatively fast read, which I really enjoyed, and I would recommend this book to anyone who enjoyed Animal Farm or 1984, or really just like learning about World War II history. Thank you for listening and have a great day.